African literature is like a buffet. You get a little bit of everything. And in this collection, you don't just get a taste. You get the full-course meal with flavors from every corner of the continent. Today, we're diving into contemporary African short stories, an anthology that brings together some of the most powerful voices from Africa. Edited by Chinua Achebe and C.L. This book takes us on a literary tour across the continent, featuring magical realism, political struggles, societal breakdowns, and even a touch of fantasy. And let me warn you, reviewing short story anthologies is like herding cats. Each story is its own world, and trying to summarize them all in one neat package is a challenge. But don't worry, I've got you covered with
stories from the four corners of the continent that will give enjoyment to the general reader as well as students and teachers of African writing, that it will encourage them to explore a literature which continues to develop and flourish.
Introduction, page 6. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's explore these stories, region by region, just as the editors intended. It is my hope that doing this would allow each story to be adequately represented, and it would be long, I am sorry. Let's begin with Southern Africa, where reality hits hard.
Most of the South African stories developed the realist mode, portraying in harsh detail the lives of the black proletariat in the shanty towns and urban ghettos.
Page 3. These stories don't sugarcoat anything. They dig into apartheid, racial oppression, and the everyday struggles of the people. The Prophetess by Njabulo S. Ndebele from South Africa. Imagine you're a 10-year-old kid, and your mom sends you to a mysterious, slightly terrifying prophetess to fetch holy water. Sounds like a simple errand, right? Nope. It's a full-blown psychological horror movie in the boy's mind. The journey to the prophetess's house? Terrifying. The dimly lit room? Nightmare fuel? The prophetess coughing? Possibly summoning spirits?
The boy wondered that if she coughed too long, what would happen? Would something come out, a lung? Did anything come out of her floor?
Page 12. But as spooky as she seems, the prophetess, the moment she recognizes the boy's mother, all the fear fades away. This story isn't just about superstition. It's about faith, the unknown, and the things we convince ourselves to believe. And oh, by the way, the boy breaks the bottle of holy water on the way home. So, was it the water that had the power, or just his mother's belief in it? Amnesty Nadine Gordimer from South Africa. This one is emotional. It's about a young woman whose fiancé is a unionist fighting against apartheid. The man had left home to work for a construction company and joined the union, hoping to save enough for their marriage. However, instead of a wedding, he was sent to prison.
I couldn't go often to the court because by that time I'd passed my standard 8 and I was working in the farm school. Also, my parents were short of money. My father and the other brother work here for the Boer, and the pay is very small. We have 2 goats, a few cows we're allowed to graze, and a patch of land where my mother can grow vegetables. No cash from that.
Page 25-26. The emotional pressure escalated when, after 2 years of his 6-year sentence, the woman saved enough money to cover the trip to the prison island to visit and return. However, she was to discover that even in prison, the government had control when he was barred from taking the ferry because they did not have a permit.
We didn't have a permit. We didn't know that before you come to Cape Town, before you come to the ferry for the island, you have to have a police permit to visit a prisoner on the island.
Page 27. So that their love was only sustained through letters, which they both knew were read by police authorities. It's a harsh reality. Apartheid didn't just affect the men fighting against it. It destroyed families. Even after his release, their love story doesn't get a happy ending. He's more dedicated to the cause than ever, and she's left wondering, will he be taken again? What happens to their daughter? This story doesn't ask for pity, it simply shows the raw truth. Wake, Lindiwe Mabuza, South Africa. Let me just say, this story is not an easy read. It jumps between perspectives, styles, and emotions like a literary roller coaster. It's about a little girl who loses her friend during the 1976 Soweto uprising, where students protested against the use of Afrikaans in schools. And when I say it's brutal, I mean it.
There was no drama to the 800 deaths, no mystery either, only the quantity and nature of violence. The fascist government wanted Africans to think, breathe, evaluate and conceptualize in Afrikaans. "Only dogs and slaves are defined by their masters," said Frederick Douglass. The students said no to indoctrination and demonstrated. The police shot them. The fascists of South Africa said shoot at any cost. Absolutely no drama to hot pursuit and murder in cold blood.
Page 36. And later the fascist government was to institute a no-mass funeral for victims of Soweto riots, thus controlling the people even in death. At times the story is poetic, at times angry, and at times just devastating. But there's also hope, a small flicker seen through the eyes of a child. 4. A Wasted Land, Daniel Mandishona, Zimbabwe. This one, pure disillusionment. The story follows Bernard, a man questioning the cost of war in Zimbabwe. The war had led to
Row upon row of empty shelves as business slackened considerably. There was no bread, sugar, eggs, soap, salt, milk, butter. In fact, there was nothing.
Page 63. His family has lost everything. His uncle returned from exile a broken man, his father died under similar circumstances, and for what?
The nationalist politicians and the government were like parasite and its host animal who need each other because of the mutual benefit of an otherwise harmful coexistence.
Page 61. And even at that period he saw the promise by the nationalist as
a tainted utopia, a paradise of emptiness.
Page 61. Finally, the war left Bernard's family naked, with nothing other than the clothes they were wearing. And who would love a war that did this to him and his family? It's the side of war no one talks about, the one where regular people, not politicians, suffer the most. 5. The Birds of God, Mia Couto from Mozambique. Now let's take a break from the harsh realities of apartheid and war and dive into something different. Mia Couto's story is pure magical realism. A poor fisherman had gone to the river to fish. He sees a bird and wished the bird was in his canoe. Then the bird was in his canoe almost dying. He realized that this was not a bird he would want to feed on and decided to let it go. But this, the bird won't go. He took the bird home, feeding it with the fish he would feed his wife and children. The poor bird became lonely and the fisherman wished for another bird and was given. These two birds took most of the food away from the family and the wife got annoyed. Yet the man sees this as a test of goodwill from God. He thought that
It was his task to show that men could still be good. Yes, that the true goodness cannot be measured in times of abundance, but when hunger dances in the bodies of men.
Page 69. When the birds hatched and more food was diverted from household consumption to feed them, his wife left him, and everybody said he was mad. So deep was his love for the birds that when he came home from fishing one day, because he foresaw a problem at home, to find that they had burnt to ashes, he wished himself dead, and Ernesto, the man, died. It's weird, it's deep, and it's exactly the kind of thing you expect from Mia Couto. Now we're heading to Central Africa, where stories don't just entertain. They expose the deep social and political realities of the region. We've got a garbage dump that serves as a window to the world, and a dictator so paranoid he surrounds himself with crocodiles. Yes, crocodiles. These stories capture the stark divide between the rich and the poor, the powerless and the powerful, and of course, the absurdity of dictators who claim to be immortal but still fear for their lives. Ever heard the phrase, "One man's trash is another man's treasure"? Well, in this story, one man's trash is another man's entire world. Joey and his family just moved to an airport neighborhood, and Joey is obsessed with airplanes. He watches them fly overhead, fascinated by the idea that people inside are traveling to far-off places. But here's the thing. Joey is not a passenger. He's just a kid looking up from the ground. Then we meet Mozambique, the airport garbage collector. His job? Taking the trash from airplanes and dumping it. But this isn't just any trash. It's a buffet of leftovers from all over the world. And to Joey and Mozambique, this garbage dump becomes a magical portal.
As I sit here every day munching bits of cheese, a whole world is opened up to me. How many thousands of miles has this can of fish traveled? What places has this packet of biscuit visited? I don't need to ride in their planes. As I sit here, Russia, America, Hong Kong, England are all in my grasp. They all find their way into this rubbish dump.
Mozambique to Joey, page 79. The irony? The rich passengers eat, throw away their scraps, and fly off to their next destination. Meanwhile, Mozambique and Joey, stuck on the ground, imagine themselves traveling through the leftovers. The contrast? The haves waste food without thinking. The have-nots savor every bite, turning discarded meals into dreams of foreign lands. And just when you think the story couldn't get any sadder, Mozambique finds a broken toy airplane in the trash and gives it to Joey. For Joey, it's not just a toy. It's his own little version of the 4-engine planes he watches every day. He hides it in his school bag, protecting it like it's made of gold. A wheelbarrow full of trash, a tiny broken airplane, 2 people trying to escape reality, even if only in their imagination. This, my friends, is life at the rubbish dump. What happens when a dictator is so paranoid that he builds a fortress filled with crocodiles, venomous snakes, and barbed wire? Well, he still gets assassinated. Welcome to the man. This story takes us into the world of a classic African dictator. You know the type. He's got a million titles.
The father-founder of the nation, the enlightened guide and savior of the people, the great helmsman, the president for life, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and the beloved of the people.
Yes, this guy basically gave himself a resume longer than his actual job description.
Alarmed soldiers. A water-filled moat of immense depth swarming with African and Indian crocodiles and caimans imported from Central America, which most certainly didn't feed solely on small fry. Full of black mambas and green mambas whose powerful venom killed their victims on the spot. An enormous 60-foot high structure of brick and stone. Watchtowers, searchlights, nails, barbed wire, and broken glass.
Page 82. Sir, are you ruling a country or starring in the next Jurassic Park movie? But guess what? He still gets assassinated, and suddenly the country scrambles to replace him. Enter the new president, the second beloved father of the nation. He promises change, but what does he do? Increases security, surrounds himself with even more spies, policemen, and hitmen. Issues a decree declaring himself unkillable and immortal. Because nothing says I'm invincible like a law that says people aren't allowed to kill you. The satire here is brilliant. These so-called fathers of the nation claim to love their people, yet they lock themselves away in fear of the very people they supposedly serve. The cycle never ends. One dictator falls, another takes his place, and nothing actually changes. This story reminds me of Chinua Achebe's A Man of the People, where the leader is so out of touch that he doesn't realize he's about to be overthrown. And just like in real life, the dictator's paranoia is justified. After all, history has shown that no matter how high the walls or how deep the moat, someone always finds a way in. Both stories show us different sides of Central Africa, one focusing on economic inequality, the other on political corruption. But what ties them together is the same brutal reality: power, or the lack of it, shapes people's lives in ways that are often absurd, tragic, and painfully real. If you found this deep dive interesting, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Would you rather be stuck at the rubbish dump or trapped inside a dictator's fortress? Tough choice, I know. Now we're heading to East Africa, where stories of love, politics, desperation, and destiny come alive. From an overprotected boy trying to leave home, to a woman drugging an entire nation into submission, to a man who literally sells cows to survive. Sounds wild? This is Contemporary African Short Stories, edited by Chinua Achebe and C.L. And we're covering stories from Zanzibar, Somalia, Tanzania, and Kenya. Imagine living your whole life in one place, staring out at the world beyond, but never stepping outside. That's Hamid's life. Hamid is an émigré who moves to the city in search of a better life. An old man takes him in and gives him a job as a storekeeper. Hamid has never gone beyond his tiny shop, never seen the world outside. Then one day, a beautiful girl walks in. Then she comes again, and again. And before Hamid knows it, he has fallen for her. But he can't bring himself to say a word. Then one evening, for the first time, Hamid dares to step beyond his self-imposed borders. Symbolism. This story is all about being trapped, not just physically but emotionally and mentally. Hamid is caged by fear, routine, and his own self-doubt. Real-life parallel? So many people move to cities expecting opportunity, but end up stuck in survival mode, never truly living. The question is, how many of us are like Hamid, living in cages we built ourselves? Now let's talk about a dictator who stays in power not through guns or money, but through magic potions. Halima is born with a jinni, spirit. Lucky for everyone, her jinni is a baby one, so it only does good things. At least at first. Halima's clan rules the country, and their rise to power is, well, nepotism at its finest. It all started when one family member got a government job. Next thing you know, every cousin, uncle, and grandmother is on the payroll. Then Halima grows up. She refuses to marry, so her family brings her to the city, because they have other plans for her. They want her jinni to help keep them in power. And how do they do that? By making the entire nation drink a magic potion that removes their ability to ask questions.
One of the effects of the Talil was to cure people of curiosity. Those who drank it stopped asking questions. Above all, they stopped wondering about the actions of the clan's leading men. They became model subjects doing, without question, without objection, what they were told to do.
Page 98. The absurdity? Imagine a country where people just accept every decision without questioning it. Oh wait, that's already happening in some places, no magic needed. The satire? This story hilariously exposes how dictators stay in power, not just through force, but by making people stop thinking. If only real-life governments had to admit they were using magic potions, at least then we'd have an excuse for some of their decisions. What happens when a lonely traveler and a single mother cross paths for one night? Nothing, and everything. Mika is stranded in a small town due to a petrol shortage. He rents a hotel but wanders out into the night, where he meets Mama Tumaini. She's a single mother whose husband, a soldier, went to war in Uganda and never came back. She thinks he's dead, but she's not sure. For one night, Mika and Mama Tumaini share something. Maybe love, maybe just loneliness. But Mika, not wanting any attachments, leaves at dawn. The story is about the uneasiness that was between them that night, even when they made love. The theme? The struggles of single mothers, especially those left behind by war. The reality? Sometimes people enter our lives for just a moment, but that moment means everything. This story isn't dramatic, it isn't loud, but it stays with you. The people of Wingu Valley are starving. The drought has destroyed their crops, and they're desperate. Kamalango tries to survive by buying cows at auctions and selling them for a small profit. Meanwhile, the government has a different approach. Instead of solving the crisis, they release a statement.
Let it be known to those who are accusing the government of doing nothing about the drought. Let them know that their rumor-mongering will not be tolerated.
Page 106. Ah yes, because clearly the real problem isn't starvation, it's rumors. Then there's Pancreas Mbula, a politician who studied abroad and knows how to fix everything. He kept telling them that it was the government's fault. He told of how the
mountain towering about the clouds with a white cap on top of it was actually a frozen lake whose water melts 4 times a year and trickles down the mountainsides right through the thick forest surrounding it, zigzagging its way down the slopes. That melted water, he explained, is equal to twice as much water as we receive from natural rain, which can turn the semi-desert into a green field all year round.
Page 109. While Mbula ranted on why the people should vote for him and how he would change their lives, with all the mannerisms of a new politician, the people cheer, sing his praises. And then Kamalengo's cow mysteriously dies on the way home, leaving his family with nothing. This story tells of politicians and their needs, votes, and how far they would go just to attain these votes while the needs of the people remain unattended. Sound familiar? If you've ever left home for a new life, this one's for you. Alu gets a scholarship to study abroad. He's excited, but his mother, not so much. She's been a widow since she was 33. She refused to remarry because she didn't want a new husband sending her kids away. She's kept her children close. Some of the elder children had married and left home, and Alu's mother's hope now rests on the narrator and Alu himself. Hence, leaving Alu to go to America to study was the most difficult decision she had to make, and now Alu wants to leave. At first, she refuses. But when she sees his excitement in the pictures of the school, she gives in, with one condition.
She looked at me, looking at her, and said, "Not to me."
Promise me that if I let you go, you will not marry a white woman.
"Oh, mother, you know I won't," said Alu.
And promise me that you will not smoke or drink.
"You know I promise." He was close to tears.
The major fear of every parent whose child leaves home for a Western country is the picking up of negative social habits like drinking, smoking, and womanizing. This fear is so ingrained that it forms the basis of advice given you on your travels. You would be told that you shouldn't forget where you came from and must do things not to shame your family. In many African cultures, when you leave home, you carry your entire family's reputation with you. Success isn't just for you, it's for them too. Thus, the prospective traveler is sent to acquire knowledge and wealth, but not to sell his values and beliefs. This one hits home. Which story stuck with you the most? Drop a comment below and let's talk. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now we're heading to North Africa, where stories of faith, identity, and survival take center stage. This is Contemporary African Short Stories, edited by Chinua Achebe and C.L. Let's explore the stories from Algeria and Sudan. Sirin and Maria are two sisters sent from Alexandria to Medina to be given to Prophet Muhammad. Their parents had been captured by the Patriarch of Alexandria because of their Persian origins, and the sisters were sent to the Prophet as part of the political and cultural exchanges of the time. Maria becomes the Prophet's wife. Sirin is married off to his favorite poet, Hassan ibn Thabit. But their new life isn't easy. Even though they convert to Islam, their neighbors still see them as foreigners. Sirin's co-wives don't really talk to her, but they do send their children to her because she's an excellent storyteller.
Then Sirin's co-wives made an effort to be civil, and their courtesy was almost genuine. The women gathered in the shady part of the little courtyard under a palm tree. One of the hostesses would very ostentatiously bring out from her room a silken cushion, another a silver tray, another a fan.
Ah yes, the classic "you're not one of us, but we'll tolerate you because you're useful." The theme here? Religious and cultural identity. The sisters convert, but does that change their past? Is faith about belief or where you come from? This is a story about religious identity and how physical features are important in determining one's true religious inclination. Sometimes I tend to ask, is it faith or features? It's the same issue Ubum Akpan explores in Luxurious Hearse. Sometimes, no matter what you believe, people will still define you by your origins. The story also follows the descendants of these women, showing how their identity continues to shape their legacy. Faith, history, and belonging. This story asks some big questions. The storyteller, yes, that's what he's called, comes from a family business of smuggling. His father was also a smuggler, but the storyteller has upgraded the operation. His specialty? Transporting alcohol across the country, illegally of course, because what's a road trip without a little contraband? One night he's moving booze after curfew, but there's a problem. Roadblock. Bona, a policeman, stops him. Now this could go badly, but this is Africa. Instead of an arrest, Bona demands a bribe.
"That box there, I'll take that one. Just lift it over the side and leave it in the dust."
Ah, corruption, the universal language of power. Theme, corruption and survival. The irony, the people meant to enforce the law are the same ones breaking it. The storyteller's motto, if words don't work, weapons will. And in a world where power is everything, sometimes you need both. We finally made it, West Africa, the last stop in our journey through contemporary African short stories, edited by Chinua Achebe and C.L. We're wrapping it up with some incredible stories from Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, and the Gambia. This is the second time I am reading this story, first encountering it in his collection of short stories titled Incidents at the Shrine. I must say that reading it a second time has helped me appreciate the story very well. Ben Okri paints a vivid, fragmented picture of urban life, poverty, corruption, and the never-ending hustle. Meet Agodi. He starts his day by accidentally splashing water on a girl, and that single moment leads to a chaotic spiral of events. The girl insulted him, and Agodi decided to chase her and convert her. During the chase, he was tripped by the midget Ajasko Atlas, who beat him to advertise his prowess and credentials as an ex-wrestler and a bodyguard. From there, the scene moved to Agodi chasing a naked man from his store. The naked man, having lost his senses, perhaps because he was too hungry, lay in the street causing a traffic jam. This traffic jam later imbued fear in a head of state who was afraid that he was going to be assassinated by some invisible people who run the country. The scene went back to the naked man as he was taken away from the road, and then to Agodi as his kiosk was stolen and his wife left him, later returning as a true prophet in a purple and yellow cloak and establishing a church. In Convergence City, there is a real convergence of people's struggles against life, and the linkage between people is made clear. We get to know that one's problems are a function of other people's problems.
The man in the street had seen a whole day pass and had learnt nothing. He had settled himself near a gutter. He covered himself with unread newspapers. He lay down as if dead, though he jerked in delirium now and again. He watched Ajasko Atlas, who had gone past a few times, shouting about his feats in India. The man in the street also watched the shed of J.J. Agodi with special zeal. He was the only person who saw the road move. Then he saw the shed move gently.
Page 143. Ulcri's magic realism shines through, reminding me of Couto's style. This story shows how survival in the city is like dominoes. One person's fall affects everyone else. The Hotel by Adewale Maja-Pearce. A single mother runs a hotel with her son after her husband's death. One day a man arrives intending to leave the next day, but he stays. A bond forms between the man, the woman, and her son. Then, without warning, he picks up his wallet, walks out, and never returns.
At noon he told her that he was going out. She wanted to accompany him, but he told her he wanted to be on his own. Walking rapidly in the suffocating heat, the dust got into his mouth and in his eyes. He got to the platform in time to hear the train approaching.
Page 148. Seriously, why? If you knew you wouldn't stay, why raise hopes? It's heartbreaking. This is a simple but powerful story about abandonment and the fragility of human connection. The housegirl Oki Chigbo from Nigeria. Comfort, a housegirl, narrates the story about the kind of relationships that exist in the house she lives in with another housegirl, her madam's husband, her madam, and their son, Callie, and daughter, Obiajeli. She feels bitter about the way her madam has not paid her ever since her father died, which is over a year ago. She says of her,
Madame is getting thinner every day despite her successful business, because her wooden heart is sucking up all the kindness in her body.
Page 154. Her madam's son is also considered wild and has been expelled from his school. He is also cunning and wants to have his way with all the housegirls in the house.
As I was watching myself in the mirror, he came up behind me and started to rub my stomach with his hands, and then worked his way up to my breasts. Yes, he actually touched them. He really is a wild animal, Callie.
Page 161. Comfort's voice is conversational, raw, and engaging. Chigbo's storytelling pulls you in. The simple language makes you feel like you're right there, listening to Comfort's story unfold. A man is pressured to take a third wife after his first two failed to bear him a son. The third wife first gave the man twins, and so their names changed to Manyi, mother of twins, and Tanyi, father of twins. 6 months after the death of the man's, Tanyi's father, Manyi gave birth to a son. Their child has a withered leg, just like the father's late father. Realizing this, the man named his son Bamia, father has come back. The mother, a devout Catholic, wanted to have her son healed and become normal. So when she heard that the Pope was coming to another town called Menda, she decided to go with Bamia so that his leg would be healed. Meeting the Pope, Bamia asked,
I want you to make me walk upright. The Pope began to say, I will pray for you. But Bamia interrupted. But my mother said you're here for God. You speak with him. She said you will make me walk erect.
Page 175. Obviously, the boy didn't walk straight. On their way back, the boy told his mother all that Tanyi had been telling her, that Bamia is his father who has come back.
I am Bamia,
he said softly. His mother asked, what do you mean? He replied,
Tanyi's father. I came back to be reborn in the family to inherit what is rightfully mine.
In many African cultures, when a child resembles a dead relative, people believe they've been reincarnated. Though one cannot prove the veracity of this, it remains a belief just as all religions are based on belief systems. Whether you believe it or not, this story highlights the deep roots of traditional beliefs clashing with modern religion. Weaverdom Tijanem Sala, Gambia. This allegorical tale uses weaver birds to represent British colonizers and grass to symbolize the colonized. The weaver birds invade, build their nests anywhere, and enforce their ways.
The weavers have an English accent, punctuated nasal notes that grip everyone's attention. They have a habit of messing up in the name of Queen Victoria's glory, the Elizabethan successions, and the common way or common woe. The weavers do not care where they build their nests. Rumours have it that they came from a little island somewhere in the northern ice, where the sun is for occasional rejoicing and where irreverence for weaver ways raises hackles. The weavers do not care about the biological rhythms of others. They send their harbingers, and then flocks follow with fervent zeal, like a school of faithful Iranians executing their heaven-driven orders, communicated through the sacred lips of the Ayatollah.
Page 179-180. Their prayer? A rewritten Lord's Prayer?
Our Father, who gave us the art of heaven, hallowed is our name, us great weaverdom, so that our kingdom spreads like it has over the isles.
Page 183. There is also a powerful play on words so that Her Royal Highness becomes Her Royal Harness. Empire Day? Nope, Vampire Day. Anglican? Nah, Weaver can. The satire here is brilliant. Sala highlights how colonizers claim they created civilization while systematically ignoring places and civilizations like
Ancient Egypt with its pharaohs, pyramids, practical and mystical men, Timbuktu with its Sankora center of learning, India with its spices, tea and spiritual quests, China with its pottery and exquisite designs, Persia and Mesopotamia with their mystical wisdom and culture of the land, and Hellenic Greece with its Apollonian angst and Dionysian conviviality.
Page 182. This is one of those stories that makes you laugh and think at the same time. Vacancy for the post of Jesus Christ, Kojo Lang, Ghana. A golden lorry descends from the sky with the inscription, Vacancy for the post of Jesus Christ. A man inside announces, Jesus is dead, we need a replacement. This surrealist story blends magic, technology, and religion. The bronze man in the lorry claims he killed Jesus Christ beyond the millionth galaxy. He searches for a new Jesus in a mortuary, a courtroom, the government, and the church. At these places, he killed those he had chosen to replace them and dumped them into the lorry, to wake them through the manipulation of time. At the seat of government, he requested the most rotten and least principled minister, and this he selected for the position. I cannot do just enough to this story, for it entails a lot. One could read different meanings into this short story. For instance, there was the feeling that Lang was recreating the great battle in the Bible that sent the devil to earth. Yet this devil was a computer fabrication which communicated with his lorry via radio waves and operated on battery.
If there is no spirit beyond the gadgets, then the gadgets take over.
Page 192. And this is what the bronzeman told Father Villa, who had elected himself to show him the places where he could find people to fill the vacancy.
My lorry of wood and gold has its own mind, created through a new type of computer.
Page 190. This story also depicts control, especially of the universe, for the man had killed Jesus Christ because he had too much spirit and gadget. Once the bronzeman told Father Villa this, the father realized that
no one man, no one people will ever control the universe. If anyone succeeds in the process of doing so, then we could all see the terrible narrowness of the galaxies, see the desire to murder the spirit.
And it was this same control exhibited by the bronzeman that, perhaps, led to his death as he ran out of energy. And it was seen that there was a bearded man who had
just jumped down from a sudden cross in the sky, looking with wonder at the nail marks on his hands.
Page 196. Leading from his novel Big Bishop Rocco and the Altar Gangsters, I have come to expect almost anything from Lang. Lang's writing is surreal, complex, and mind-bending. Is this a critique of technology, of power, Of how we replace spirituality with materialism? Either way, it's one wild ride. And that's it. West Africa wraps up our journey through contemporary African short stories. Reading this anthology is like traveling through Africa's history, struggles, and imagination, all in one book. From political oppression to faith, from war to magical birds, these stories remind us that African literature isn't just one thing, it's everything. If you love short stories that make you think, feel, and sometimes even laugh at the absurdity of life, this book is for you. Link to get yourself a copy is in the description. And if I may ask, which story stood out to you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this series, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more deep dives into African literature. Until next time, happy reading.